Hi guys, welcome to printmaking. This is going to be a short video on how to make the collage that will form the key image for your silkscreen project. It's the first thing that you have to make for the project. So here is what you need to do is find the package for a favorite food, candy, beverage, whatever it is, but something that you really like. Uh, Find the package for it, whether it's a cardboard box, a can, a bottle, and scan it or Xerox it. If you have to flatten it, you can do that. If you have to break it apart, like take a box and unfold it and make it flat, you can do that. And make uh, Xeroxes or copies of it at various scales. Okay, so here's the example. Uh, Years ago, many years ago, I made this image on the copy machine of a Happy Meal. So we've got fries, there's a hamburger wrapper, and a flattened cup. Um, this is three things, and I don't want you to be confused. You need to pick one. So I'm going to use the French fries as an example of one that's already done, and the cup as an example of one that's already done. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the hamburger one, which is the image that I'm going to make to demo in class. So what you're going to do first is take, in this case, the French fries and make copies of that image. And if you're using the computer, what you want to do is do all this in Photoshop, turn it to grayscale, and then make it extremely high contrast so it's just black and white. If you're doing this analog with paper and scissors, run Xerox copies or scanner copies that are 100% size, 200%, 300%, 400%, 50%. So you've got a variety of scales of images. Then what you're going to do is cut those up if you're using paper, sorry, that goes this way, and make a collage out of those things. If you do this in the computer, use Photoshop to do this. Don't turn this into a vector file in Illustrator. All of the dithery elements and the irregularities that come from the scanner and posterizing in Photoshop will create a better image than a really overly smooth vector. But all of the elements that make this new composition are shapes that were in the French fries. Sometimes they're repeated multiple times at different scales. But one of the most important things in this project is that you obscure it, that you can no longer recognize that this is a McDonald's product or French fries. Looking at this composition, you can see where the visual elements come from, but you wouldn't look at the finished print and say, oh, that came from McDonald's, okay? But this is just a black and white collage glued together or taped together. It can be fairly roughly assembled at this point, and I'll show you how to use it for the next step later. This needs to be exactly 8 inches by 10 inches. You can have a vertical format like I do, or you can have a horizontal format. That is up to you, but it needs to be exactly 8 by 10 inches. And make sure you're measuring whether you're using the computer or whether you're doing this analog. So I'm going to show you the finished print just to see how this ends up. This is a finished print that was done from that image. And if you look at it, you can see that the dark blue elements coincide with the black elements here. Okay, if I do that, you can see that. And I'll show you an example. This is from a while back. All of the elements in this composition were derived from just the cup. So I've stayed true to the project in that I have only used one of the packages for each of the finished prints. So I told you I was going to do something with the hamburger. What I have done is I have isolated just the hamburger wrapper here, and I've made several copies of this at different sizes. So this is sort of the basic size. I have some that are smaller as well, but then I made one that is blown up. I think this one is 200%, and it's just a segment of the image. And this one is 300%, and it's a different segment of the image. And this one is a very small segment of the image at 400% size. And you notice that as I do this, the shapes become more and more abstract, and the original source, the McDonald's wrapper, is no longer evident in these things. So what I'm going to do with these now, not in front of you, but what I will do with them and what you need to do with yours is then collage them together to make a finished image. This is a design project. It is not a graphic design project, so it's very important that you obscure the product. And when you have words like the word hamburger, okay, don't use words or even complete letters in your design. We don't want to read this with the English language. We want to read this using the elements of art. So this really becomes a beginning design composition using all of the elements of art you learned about in beginning design. Repetition and variety, black and white, positive space, negative space, figure ground, ambiguity, and things like that. So it needs to be an interesting design, but I don't want your design to look like it came from the original product. So if you use a Sprite bottle, by the time you're done, we shouldn't know that your product was Sprite. If you use your favorite breakfast cereal, we don't want to know that it was even cereal, much less Cheerios or something like that. With boxes and wrappers particularly, open up the box. There may be things printed on the inside. Barcodes are great design elements. There may be registration marks on the little flaps on the folds of the box that you can use. Anything that is printed on that package is going to be fair game for your design as long as it comes from that one package. If it's a bottle, like a Coca-Cola bottle, not only can you use the wrapper, but you can use the transparent plastic bottle as well, or the screw top as well. So don't feel like you just have to peel the wrapper off of that, something like that, and use it. If it's a foil wrapper, which comes on some foods, you can Xerox the inside or scan the inside of the foil as well as the outside of the foil. So you can be creative, but it has to come from one package, from one product, not a combination of things. The last thing that's really, really important is that silkscreen does not deal well with subtle tonal variations. Silkscreen prints are very much like a regular light switch. It's either the ink is on or the ink is off. So you'll notice that the images that I'm working with are extremely high contrast, black and white, no gray. If you have gray areas, and actually you can see a little bit of it right here. You see how that gray area is actually breaking up into a texture of some fairly large white spots in a black field. Those work fine. And if you want the effect of gray, what you can do is take the thing you've Xeroxed, take the copy and put it on the machine or the scanner, and make a copy of the copy, and then make another copy of the copy, and then make another copy of that. And eventually it will break down into a pattern of black and white marks that are large enough to print reasonably well in a silkscreen. Pick a package that has very high contrast. A lot of packaging may have a lot of colors on it, but the colors are all in the same value range. It's better to have something where you have very dark colors and very light colors, or white, because it's going to be easier to create the contrast you need with that. Don't use a lot of Photoshop functions or tricks to do this. You can play with, you need to turn it to grayscale. You can play with brightness and contrast. If you use the posterize function, use posterize to 2 levels, which will make it black and white and nothing else. But get rid of any gray elements. They're going to cause problems, and visually they're there when you're designing the piece, but when it comes to actually making the screen and printing it, then they disappear and you wonder where your image went. Okay? So the goal is to go from that recognizable thing to this abstracted design. But again, all the elements come from that one package. My syllabus is already in Moodle. You can look at it. My email is there and my cell phone number is there. If you have any questions about this video, you can send me a text or an email before Tuesday and I'll answer them. But if you get a start on this before Tuesday, we'll be able to get through the project a little bit quicker, because as you know, with the pandemic, things are going to be starting a little bit more slowly and in a little more complicated way here at the university. So the more things we can get done a little ahead of time, or even have you thinking about a little ahead of time, the more progress we can make in the semester. I need to see your design before you go forward with it, and I'll have an opportunity to do that in class so that when we look at it, we can see that you are capable of making a good print from it and that it's a good design. So if the design doesn't work, or if you've made something that isn't going to transfer to the screen real well, we'll catch that before you use it. Okay, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you all bright and early at 9 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. Bye-bye.